You want me to start
Andy's
the
on
meeting?
mute. Somebody needs to unmute Andy.
Andrew, unmute yourself.
Kenny?
Yay.
There he is.
There we
Okay.
go.
There you are.
Hey.
Hi, Jane.
All right, it is now 6:33. We will call to order the Riverbend HOA board meeting for July 27th, 2020. And we need to establish quorum. So if we will start someone, I'm Jane DeBross, Vice President.
Debbie Milstead.
Andrew Puget, Treasurer.
Noel Yassine, Member at Large.
Okay, so we have 4 members present. So we have the call to order. Now, the minutes, we need to approve the meeting minutes from June 22nd, 2020. Do we have any discussion of the minutes?
Hello.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from June 22nd?
All motion.
I'll second it then. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. All right, moving on, treasurer's report. Andrew?
Okay, that's me. So for the month of June, which is where we're reporting, we had a budget of $15,600 to work with, and we spent $12,523. So we're actually looking. I'm sorry. Let me back up. Our current revenue. So our revenue was budgeted for $15,000, and we actually got $12,500. So it's a little under what we were expecting. However, that's normal because we are up for the year. In fact, looking at it, we were expecting to get for the year about $4,375 in late fees, but we only got $719, and that's because we decided not to charge rolling late fees because we believed it was inconsistent with Florida law. So the actual amount that we have in revenue, even with the drop of $4,000 in late fees, is still $93,604 for the year. We're looking at getting $94,072. So we are almost perfect on what we were expecting to bring in versus what we've got. That's stellar budget. Credit to Ameritech on that. That's not me, that's Ameritech. And then as far as expenditures go, we're looking to spend $12,800 this month, and we spent $6,400. Now, the reason for that was expected, and the reason for that was because the money that we spent on the fireworks was counted on last month's budget. So we were expecting, since we didn't do as well last month, to kind of make that up, and we did so in spades. For the year, we're budgeted to have spent $94,000, and we've only spent $89,000. So we're still $5,067 up for the year, which is pretty fantastic.
That's great. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hang on, Jane.
Go ahead.
Andrew, did you see the message from Debbie about unapproved invoices?
Yeah, there were 2 unapproved invoices. Those have been approved. So
They have been. Okay.
Yep.
Here's Merrick.
Oh, hi, Merrick.
You're on mute, Merrick.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
Okay.
There we go.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go on, or you want to take over? We're ready to go to unfinished business, Merrick.
You can go on.
Okay. Unfinished business, follow up on inspections for lawn care. I had wondered, and I think we maybe amongst ourselves had talked about making sure that grass and lawns are inspected more than once a month. It seems like, and this goes back even before COVID, which really COVID should have nothing to do with this, but nevertheless. It seems like there's a lot of people complaining about their neighbors' grass and weeds and so forth, especially being very tall and not getting mowed. And once a month, by the time you give a letter or whatever, and then they have time to fix the problem and don't fix the problem, it could be 2 months or whatever of not mowing. And so I just thought I'd throw it out there to see if there are pros and cons against having grass at least checked every 2 weeks.
I'm doing them starting last week, every other week.
Okay,
Well, there you go.
So I did get some, because I have to go around and do the trash cans anyways.
right.
So I did, and I'm only doing mowing of the grass. I'm not saying you have weeds. If you have to mow and you have weeds, I'm getting you on both. But what we did was we added under immediate mow your grass, because the other one says you have 30 days. So the
Okay.
immediate is mow your grass. So
Oh.
yeah. And
Oh, I
that's
didn't know
good, because
that.
if we do it on a Monday, by the weekend, hopefully they mowed their grass.
Right.
So, and I might find there may be, there may be 10 of them that have to, that when you go around that are like really bad that you can tell. I'm not talking about those little things that after a
Right.
good rain pop up. I'm talking, you could clearly see, the grass is like 6,
Yeah.
8 inches. So
Right.
those are the ones that are getting letters. And we did a bunch of them last week in with the whole go around. And those who have sod and weed issues, as far as, grass, it's not grass, it's really just weeds. Those are going back to, once a month, that one. But mowing of the grass, I'm doing every 2 weeks. There'll be every other week for mowing of the grass.
Okay, I'm really glad to hear that. I think a lot of people will be glad to hear that too.
But this isn't those 2 or 3 lots that are over in Spyglass. Those are already going to fine hearing. So those will be at the fine hearing. They've all received letters. I understand a couple of them are for sale, but they're not sold yet. So they still have to be done. So, those are investment properties. I'd rather take them to fine hearing, give them slap $1,000 fine on them. And then when they have to go to sell, we can collect money from them.
Can
And
we?
if you want to do forced mowing on that, we could do that as well.
Yeah, we have that in new business, I think,
Mhm.
to talk about.
Okay.
Anything else with regards to this idea? Anything else with landscape and inspections and grass and lawns?
I think we've been pretty good. It was just, with the COVID-19 and kind of slip a little bit. I mean, Kelly was doing the inspections, once a month, most of the time, but then through the COVID-19, that was the main thing. We didn't really inspect major like painting and all.
Yes, I did. I never stopped.
Yeah, I'm saying you never stop on the grass.
Jane
on the
knows I never
landscaping.
stopped, because I send her and Debbie all my threatening emails from people. And I send them over and say, hey, make sure I'm not seeing something. So I never stopped. During the whole COVID, a lot
There
of
was
people couldn't get
painting,
out
it was
there.
kind
and
of stopped and
pressure wash,
pressure
dirt
wash,
has nothing
but
to do with COVID.
never landscaping,
Right.
maintaining your landscape.
Absolutely.
All right, we ready to go on to new business?
Yep. Sure.
Okay, first thing on new business, hire landscaper to do forced mows. So I think, Merrick, you put that on there, didn't you, on the agenda?
Yes, because that's the issue we have with those homes. Basically, it's always renters, or they getting on foreclosed through the bank, and we're going in circles, and that's what we see, like 6 feet grass, and to add, by the time they respond, it will be 2-3 months just to do a force mow and add this thing to their account. I mean, I can find a local landscaper that will go and do the first small, I don't know, like reasonable, $30, whatever, $40 or whatever our administrative fees are to add to it. That, I mean, basically, when I live in another community, that's what was happening. Basically, if they force small, it was basically one cut will cost the same thing as having a whole month sign up with a contractor. I mean, I had that and the other subdivision, they mow for me, and I decided to go with monthly landscaper than paying $50 a month for somebody just to come once. But we don't have as much problem with residents living here. It's just those foreclosed homes or whatever the reason is, or like the rentals.
Rentals are the big
He
problem.
moves out, and
Yeah.
that's
Chris,
why
Mhm.
you mow, or we're gonna mow once, and you're gonna basically pay about the same amount. That is monthly fee for you just to sign up contract with somebody to mow every 2 weeks or every week.
when your letter goes out, Chris, does it say that we will force mow if it's not completed?
No, we can have a letter that is going to say that on some of these properties.
Okay.
Some of the ones that we know are in like bank foreclosure, I think it can say that, though. The one that's next door, I was talking with Ariana about hers across the street on the side of hers. I'm just looking at that one now. That one is just absolutely disgusting. I mean, there's everything wrong with that house. I'm gonna see if it's in bank foreclosure. That would be a house we would want to go in. Here's the problem though. In a bank foreclosure, and Andy, you and I have many years of experience with this. In a bank foreclosure, you get a certain amount of money. If the bank takes it over, you get 1% of the mortgage or a year's worth of assessments, whichever is less. So we're going to get $199. I don't know that if the bank takes it over, the bank is obligated to pay all the costs back that we would put into all the mowing. And it could be $300, $400, $500 if it costs us, $50 a month or something, or, $25 every time somebody goes out there. So that's going to have to be something that the board's going to have to think about.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't do it on houses where people are just lazy, because then they're just going to get used to having somebody come and mow their grass. These would only be those properties out there, the vacant lots, if we can't get them to do it, and like bank foreclosures where Andy, what do you think? I mean, cost of money on a bank foreclosure that you might not get back?
Yeah, so the idea is you get, 1 year's worth of assessments, which for us is virtually nothing. I mean, it's going to be about what, $99 times 2, so
Yeah.
$198. And then from there, the reason why usually it's not a problem to do forced mowing and to do other fines and charges is because you eventually put a claim of lien, right? And that lien basically, attaches to the house itself. Now, when it comes down to putting a claim of lien that comes after a lis pendens, once that lis pendens attaches, in a foreclosure case, then, it's very possible that because of the way our documents are set up, that we don't have priority when that claim of lien comes after the lis pendens. And if that's the case, then that foreclosure has the ability to foreclose on our lien, which would basically leave us, again, unprotected except for that 1% or $198, the 1 year. So, as far as that goes, the board has to basically make a value decision as far as whether it makes sense for the community as a whole to force mow because it raises the esteem of the community and it avoids problems with mowing, or to roll the dice and see if the bank will take care of that as well. A lot of times, in my experience, if you call whatever bank is servicing the loan, the servicer, and you tell them that, you know, they're in violation and we're going to start attaching, and it's going or doing force mows, what they'll do is they'll actually do a force mow themselves. The reason why is because in incorporated areas, incorporated municipalities, what'll end up happening is the city will actually attach some kind of an ordinance violation, and those can't be foreclosed like a claim of lien for an HOA. So because those servicers have obligations based upon a pooling and servicing agreement, typically if you contact them and let them know that they're going to start being assessed, what they'll do is they'll actually have someone go out there and they'll mow. And what they'll do is they'll attach that to their foreclosure because they can collect on that. So it may be one of those things where the board says, well, let's see if we can first reach out to the lien holder, the servicer, and see if they'll do it, or in cases of foreclosure, or, you know, failing that, we just do it ourselves because it makes sense for us to spend the $50 or $100 to mow, as opposed to letting it get, you know, wild and lower the value of the rest of the houses in our community.
Chris, what's been your experience with that procedure?
Well, I mean, the first mortgage has lien priority. They'll wipe us all out except for what is due. I'm looking at this one particular house right now, and I think it's Fannie Mae's house or Freddie Mac's. So I think it went through lien foreclosure. It doesn't even look like it's ours anymore. So that might be something that we go after and we foreclose on that one, and then the HOA gets a house.
Great.
Those are always
Yeah,
good
well,
things.
either that or we do we assess it to the bank, because you can do that.
Yeah.
And then at that point, if the bank wants to sell their REO, what they're going to have to do is pay whatever claim of lien that the HOA has at their closing.
Yeah, because we can muck up their title. They can't close if they got liens out there.
Exactly.
No, he still has the house, but it's a different mailing address. And I don't see that this house is in foreclosure. I think he got it in foreclosure. He purchased it. And now it's still there. So it's a different mailing address. I'm going to make sure that we're sending it to the right place so that we can, because the house is just a mess. And then houses like that, we can send out and say, you know, if you don't maintain it, we're going to force mow it and it's going to cost X amount of money, and we'll put it on their ledger.
That X amount of money should be a number that is scary enough to where they would mow their own lawn. You know, like if it's $25 per mow, if it were me, I would just have a force mow every time. If that sounds attractive. But if it's like a cost that's really going to be more than what it would be to just regularly get it mowed.
I mean,
It's gonna be a deterrent.
when I was living in a other subdivision, that's what they did. Like the front, they'll charge 25, and one mow will cost monthly. You can have a monthly for 4 mows, and usually that didn't happen. If somebody wants it, yeah, you can pay that, but then next time you get the fines too on top of it, and gets to $1,000. It's not just so $25, and they're gonna keep skipping for every few months. You get a one-time shot. It's force mow, and then you get the fine.
Right.
That's how the other subdivision I was, they did one time, but then next time there was a fine coming with the force mow. Then basically it was like for just the front was $25 plus $100 fine.
Yeah, so we're talking about 2 different forms of action, right? We're talking about fining, which is one thing, and then we're also talking about force mowing, which is a different thing. So we want to make sure that if we're charging someone to force mow, the charge to force mow isn't punitive, because that can be interpreted as a second or unlawful fine. But if we are fining because they're failing to mow, and then we also happen to force mow, as long as we're charging a reasonable amount for that force mow, we can also charge them or fine them for their violations against the DCCRs. So usually those two work hand in hand, but we'll say, okay, well, we're going to start fining you. But if on this date, by this date, it's not done, we're going to force mow as well. Then you'll be responsible for the price of the force mow, plus any fines that accrued up to the point where we mowed.
Okay,
That makes sense.
yep.
Well, you think that makes sense for you?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's
Just,
a,
some people would go say, okay, how many times are you gonna catch me? It's $100 for force mow, but I'm not getting fined. If you
No,
No,
mow, then you still-
then there'll be both. We definitely want to fine
yeah,
because, 10 days not painting your house or, doing the stuff that needs to be done, that 10 days, when I'm back out there, we're sending out those fine notices too.
Yeah.
So Andy, on top of the 1,000 that we do for the fining, we're gonna hit them with every force mow that we have as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because really the force mow is just, the charge that we do for the force mow should be just compensation for what it costs to basically forward the cost of that mow.
Okay.
It shouldn't necessarily be designed as a punitive amount. The punitive amount is the established fine that's established on the fee schedule. What we don't want to run into is a situation where somebody looks at it and says, well, it looks like I'm getting a de facto fine because you're charging a punitive amount for the forced mow, and that's not on your fining schedule. So therefore, you didn't have authority to do that. What we want to do is just stay away from that, charge just whatever it costs us for a regular mow when it comes to force mowing, and then make sure that we're being consistent with our fining practice as far as violations.
Any other discussion?
no,
Are we ready for the firestorm once we start enforcing those fines? I hear it gets really, very loud on Facebook and, and for those of the few that are out, homeowners that are watching, the letters do say if you need more time to contact us, and we are very reasonable. 6 months, a year is not reasonable. 60 days is very reasonable. 90 days is very reasonable. We have a number of homeowners that call and say, I just bought a year ago. I can't believe it. My house is only however old. And I let them know it is a known fact. We do have a number of letters from attorneys where Lennar watered down the paint at least by 50%. And they have a lot of bad stucco issues. So everybody that says I'm in litigation, they have proven by a letter from an attorney that we have. Those are the people that are off the hook right now, but I tell them I want every 3 months, I want to know what's going on. And
Now
they
you
said
can.
it will take about a year for them to be able to see. So some of the really worst ones, they're just waiting for funds to come available or be released or whatever it is from the court. So we're on them too. So those that have the really bad stucco cracking, they're in lawsuit with Lennar.
and Taylor Morrison. It's also one of the ones. Taylor Morrison also had really bad stucco. One of the houses on Riverbriar, the one that was collapsing, that was the
Yes,
Taylor
yes.
Morrison home.
Yep.
My home was one too, but got that
Did
fixed.
you have any stucco cracking?
Oh yeah, but I
Okay.
fixed it on my own without, Taylor Morrison was just,
Yeah.
it was not happening.
No.
Well, thanks for following up on those cases, Christina Kelly. We appreciate it.
Well, and I
Yes.
think too, people need to know, just go right outside your community. You got another Riverbend West going out there, $200,000, two upper twos or middle twos for a brand new house. So we got to make sure Riverbend looks good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All your property values.
Are
Yep.
you hiring someone now, or are you gonna let the community know that you're gonna start enforce and do force mows?
I don't think it's going to be as many as you think. We're not going like community wide and start, like I said, mowing people's lawns. I think we'd start by the worst ones, the continued offenders. We can do that, looking at them. And those lots, we'll take a look at the lots and see about those. And then the one that I'm looking at right now, next to Ariana, I mean, there's a different mailing address now. So I see there's another house that this person owns. I'm going to make sure those letters were sent there. If they were not, then they're going to get a letter and then they're going to have to come and do something because they already have $1,000 fine. Well, They have, it's $1,000 fine per violation. And this particular house has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 violations. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Is that
5,
the one
6
on the corner?
violations. That's $6,000 in fines, yes.
Okay, I know that
Yeah.
house. I know who owns that house or owned, perhaps.
Oh, it's a rental now?
I think it's empty. It's been empty.
Empty,
There's
yep.
nobody there, and it is a mess. And that's on Roanoke.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So,
Okay, anything else with this before we go on to the parking survey?
Nope.
Okay, Judy, you were the one I think that collected the data on the surveys we had about how our residents feel about parking, whether to enforce the DCCRs as written or whether they want something else. So do you want to report to us what you found?
Sure. We had 4 different categories that we used. People that really didn't care about the parking, it didn't affect them as far as they were concerned. People that wanted us to strictly follow the DCCRs. People that wanted parking on the non-mailbox side, and then people that wanted parking on the non-mailbox side with restrictions. So the ones that really didn't care, there were only 8 people that sent in. The ones that wanted to follow the DCCRs, there were 56 people. The ones that wanted parking on the non-mailbox side, there were 69 people. And the one that wanted parking on the non-mailbox side with restrictions was 14 people. And the 2 major restrictions were that they did not want parking on it at night, and that they did no blocking of driveways on either side. So that was basically it. I did check and make sure that only 1 person per family voted, so it was a valid vote.
Well, it seems to me that's obvious that if we do end up allowing people to park on the non-mailbox side of the street, they shouldn't be parking right next to somebody's driveway anyway.
Right.
The issue would be whether we restrict the hours.
Didn't we put out a mail with the 2 major things? Andrew, you were talking about that, I think.
Yeah, so I think the idea was procedurally to spend this month getting, kind of an idea of what are the major options that people want in our community. And then from there, when we send out the first band of letters, to actually use those categories and let people actually fill out a survey with all the categories that were present online. So the online one, albeit not scientific, was there to say, okay, what are the prevailing ideas? What are the major options that everyone would vote on? That way we don't have just 2 options when there might be 3 or 4, but we don't have 30 when really only there are 3 or 4 viable options. And then to send out the letters to the community that say, hey, your election's coming up, this is what you need to do if you want to run, with the actual survey, and say, here are the options that we're looking at. Let us know, vote for your favorite. And then at that point, once we get those in, we know what the favorite is. We know what our best shot of actually amending the DCCRs are. And then when we actually send out the ballots to vote with the actual names of the people who are running and all of that, then we can also send out a petition to amend the DCCRs and say also, if you're in favor of this amendment, fill this out and return it as well. So it seems to me like we know which ones aren't, which options certainly are not very popular. And I only think there are 2 or 3 that are really viable as far as being able to get the community to change them. So I think at this point, it makes sense to say, okay, let's go ahead and prepare a survey that we can send out with a first wave of letters, so that people can vote. Every single homeowner gets a chance to vote on the prevailing options, so that we can take the winner and try to actually amend the DCCRs with it.
And we may have a different outcome because our informal survey on, on social media, included renters as well as owners, but yet when we send these election letters out and amend the DCCRs, it only goes to owners, correct?
Correct.
That's right. Yeah. So the online one wasn't scientific, but at least it kind of avoids the scenario where someone's like, well, yeah, you know, we might have actually had this idea and all would have been in favor of that, but we never got that as an option.
Right.
Now we say, okay, we know what the ideas are. We know which ones have a chance. Now let's go to the homeowners, make sure that they get it, and give them a chance to pick the one they want. Yeah.
So we sent it out via email, and that went out to almost 200 people. And then we put it on Facebook and Nextdoor. So the survey came from all of those. And I think really the only two viables you need are follow the DCCRs, are parking with on the non-mailbox side, and then you know you can add your own restrictions later on if you want.
Yeah, I guess you don't need an option for no change because
Right.
no,
Right.
because if you
That
don't
means
want change,
nothing.
you don't want to anyway.
Park on the curb and everywhere.
First, I think we should have the community vote by email. Where'd we put it? Facebook and Nextdoor.
Right.
No,
Oh,
for the election. Because we got a 20% turnout on this.
I don't know that that's legal, Andrew. That's
Yeah.
not legal.
I don't think it is.
I'm being
You can
sarcastic.
try.
Well, see, you got them coming from all places.
Yeah.
Anyway, do
Well,
we,
with the COVID, maybe there are other options. I don't know. We'll have to check into it. You know, maybe host the annual meeting via Zoom,
there you go.
you know?
That's interesting.
I'm
Or
hoping,
we can wear a mask and still attend.
yeah.
Or not wear a mask and still attend.
No,
I'm not going to be there.
no.
Well,
Not wear a
you
mask.
can vote by mail, right?
You can
People
definitely vote
send
by
it.
mail.
That's all,
Yeah.
yeah. Do we want to talk about at this point, what, if we're going to do non-mailbox side with restrictions, how are we going to enforce them? I mean, are we going to even think of restrictions, or going to wait until the community tells us what they think? I'm just worried about getting a result that we are not going to be able to enforce.
Well, either way, we have to enforce, I mean, whether we enforce no parking at all or we enforce it on one side of the street, we have to figure out a way to enforce this. And I don't know how to do this because our patrols that apparently they used to use with off-duty deputies doesn't seem to be a very viable option.
They won't
And
do
again, we have to look up license plates.
Yeah, that's the crux.
See this,
that.
Well, and there are just other reasons why it's difficult to enforce. Like if people are parking on the street, they're doing it after they get home from work, and Ameritech
Exactly.
traditionally doesn't do inspections after 5 o'clock. So you know, and it's one of those things where you know now you start paying someone to go around at random times in addition to what you know Ameritech's you know already doing inspections. You know, there's just logistical issues with enforcing it all the time to where you're not going to, you know, unless you have a tow truck driver getting a piece of every violation, you're not going to be able to enforce it 24/7.
But a tow truck company can't tow on a public street.
No.
Right. No, I'm saying to get a tow truck company to go around and just constantly patrol
Yeah.
on a contingent basis.
do we know when parking is really a problem? I mean, with COVID, it's kind of hard to tell because a lot of people are home who would ordinarily be home. But is the parking a real problem 24/7 or is it more at night?
More at night.
More at
Hey,
night.
it's
I'm up till 4 in the morning, and it's from 5:30, 6 p.m. till early morning.
I think you're
And
right.
it depends on which area, which street you're on.
How
All
do
of
you and Lawrence Hall have a real problem 24/7?
Dakota Rock, Washita Stone, Tanana Fall.
And especially the problem is if people start parking on both sides of the street and in the wrong direction of
Mhm,
traffic.
on the curves.
On the grass.
Problem is, you've got big houses that have 4 or 5 bedrooms, and you have 4 or 5 vehicles, and there's no restrictions on the amount of vehicles, and the driveways and that and garages can't fit all of them. So where do you put them? Everybody just assumes I can put them in the street.
Oh, you can park 2 in the garage, 2 in the driveway, 1 across.
I hear you. I was almost stoned when I told people in another association, your garage is meant for your car. It's not your storage.
Absolutely.
Maybe we should look into amending and having actual sheds. Yeah.
This will be the best. Fine.
But
I'll put up a
Storage
fence.
shed.
House is the same.
Backyard.
Yeah, we thought
The
about that
backyard's not the
amending
same.
the sheds once. That was a nightmare, wasn't it, Debbie?
Yes.
Well, I can just see the sheds flying all over the place in a strong wind.
Right,
And not being kept.
kept
Right.
up.
well,
I
that declutters instantly. That's a problem solved.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said that declutters their garage permanently. So if stuff flies away, oh well.
Yeah, but it might fly in my window.
It might fly out into my
Yeah, but
house.
you can
I
make
need a
the-
dresser, so I'll catch it.
But you
Come
can make the
on.
restriction, you can make the restriction where it has to be strapped in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what we've done in other associations. We understand townhome associations, villas, and even, you know, single family houses. People would love to get their stuff out of their garage and put it in the shed. We made it so it couldn't be no bigger than this, and it had to be one that you have to, you know, strap it down. And the architectural comes around, and if they look and it's not within their standards and it looks like it's going to be a little flimsy one, then, you know, we tell them they can't have it. It's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I think the ARB has broad discretion as far as what it can actually require. I mean, you can certainly require that all sheds be on a cement pad, you know, bolted and secured
Mm-hmm.
with, you know, steel, you know, bolts to be, you know, X deep within the cement. They can restrict it to say you can only have, you know, Rubbermaid, you know, series X, Y, and Z, or, you know, you have to use 300 series steel, or, you know, you can, you know, the ARB has broad discretion as far as what they want to do. You know, but to the extent that it would involve a change in the actual DCCRs, you know, that would definitely involve the HOA in providing them the ability to allow certain forms.
Yeah, because right now we don't allow sheds at all.
No,
Mhm.
the
And you can't.
DCCRs don't
You
allow
just don't
it.
even have the discretion. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'd be more inclined to approve a driveway widening than I would a shed,
Mm.
so they could accommodate another car. Except when they,
You have so many lawns like mine, though, Debbie, that it's not possible to widen it so that I could
know.
even get another
I was
car
gonna
there.
say, except for the ones where you're parking right in front of your
And
front.
then what do you do with those people?
Yeah, because a lot of the lawns are pretty small. Front yards are pretty small.
Right? Mine,
And then
mine
you,
is
yeah,
one.
you have to
Developer designed
diversify everything, so.
the homes in some yards, or you can add another house right between them, and then the next ones you can barely just pass through, you know.
Right.
You know what, I'm still stuck on, this was in the rules, you can't park on the street. Because I remember reading those rules before we even signed for the house. And I,
Well, that's true, but again, how are you going to enforce it, Debbie?
Well,
It's
I think
every-
the broader issue is the rules also provide for amendments. So, you know, as far as, you know, whether we want to allow the community to vote and decide to change the rules, you know, that's consistent with, you know, looking at the rules and buying a house and knowing that the community, that these are the rules currently, and also the community can change the rules. As far as just having the rules and being on the board and saying these are the current rules, you know, Debbie's right. You don't have the, you know, discretion to say, well, we're going to enforce or we're not going to enforce. So, you know, I think at this point it probably makes sense to let the community say, you know, to put it in the hands of the community and say, look, the ball's in your court. If it really is as big of a problem, then, you know, here's your relief, here's your ability to change it. But if it's not, you know, choosing not to amend the DCCRs to allow, you know, either one street parking or some other solution is in effect a de facto vote to say, no, go ahead and enforce the current rules.
Mhm.
And then we're left deciding how to enforce it.
Right.
Yeah.
We either way, we have to make that decision of how to enforce either.
No, I agree, but it's gonna expand, it's gonna draw the parking issue out for months. How long, I mean, this is gonna go out with the election information at the end of
Yeah.
the month,
Right.
okay? 9 times, or I bet 40% of them are gonna misplace it, lose it, not respond.
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
not our issue. All right, so we get a poor showing back and it says, I don't know.
That's been the conundrum for, what,
I know.
15 years?
This is a no-win situation, really.
I know.
It is, no matter how you look at it.
And you know what? I'm not,
You know, I personally don't like parking on the street either, and I don't have a problem with having to park on the street here.
I don't either. Yeah.
But I understand other people do, but again, what do you do?
Well, I think it's important to understand too that this isn't a binary, you know, issue as far as you enforce or you don't enforce. That is to say, it's not like you have to have someone in the community on the road 24/7 in order to check a box and say we're enforcing. The binary decision to enforce or not enforce is if we're confronted with an actual violation and we say no, we're choosing not to enforce that. That is what non-enforcement is. Okay, enforcement is saying when you're confronted with a violation, you follow some kind of procedure and take some kind of action to enforce that. So it's not like we have to you know, enforce it to the point where we're substantially clearing out 90% of parking. Having a policy in place to do routine inspections and to have some policy that we follow to take action to curb and to find people when we are confronted with those violations is enforcement, irrespective of whether it's so effective that it clears out the actual underlying problem. Our job is to figure out the balance between effectively enforcing it and being so strict that we're spending too many time, resources, and frustrating the purpose by trying to enforce it. And so we just have to kind of thread the needle there, and hopefully we'll have the community give us a solution that makes it a lot easier on us. But if they don't, then we just have to do the best job that we can do to create a policy so that we can in good faith say it's being enforced, and try to figure out that balance between, you know, extremely strict, burdensome, you know, patrolling and, you know, just letting everyone do whatever they want.
Maybe perhaps have the homeowners that do find it problematic report to us these big, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that would volunteer to take
Yeah.
pictures of cars, tags, home, names. Clearly by the votes, people are not like really happy with the parking situation, you know? So this is going to be letting homeowners know, like, hey, we're going to be enforcing. It's going to sound like really scary. FYI, don't park on the streets, or however it goes, park on the non-mailbox side. And if you do, this is what's going to happen.
And the solutions that the prior board members have done aren't something that we're necessarily married to, and we decide to enforce the parking rules. You know, there's nothing in the actual DCCRs that requires us to run tags on the cars. That was just the prior board's attempt to draw a nexus between the actual car that's parked on the street and the homeowner that we can actually find. So if the board wanted to adopt a different policy, such as if a neighbor reports someone and says, I've seen this person, it's this person that lives at this house, that lives at this house driving this car, here's a picture of it, here's their tags, I'm telling you that I personally witnessed them getting out of that vehicle, then at that point, the board could create a policy to say, okay, well, let's fine them and see what happens. If they take it to a FRC meeting and, they say it wasn't me and the other neighbor says, yes, it was, that's the FRC's problem. They have to decide whether they're going to enforce the violation or whether it's valid. As far as we're concerned, we just need to adopt a policy that is, in good faith, make sure that there's some kind of a connection between the car that was parked on the road violating the parking policy and the homeowner whom we're fining.
That seems like a can of worms trying to enforce that.
And you're just
Right,
pushing
but
off
it's our can.
responsibility. for
What I'm
finding
saying is we're not
somebody
married to
else.
those prior solutions. We can create our own as well.
I mean, there is a subdivisions that they have a letter that if you want to report a violation, that's you fill the form like we have for A or B. It's the same thing.
Okay, put another button on the website for it.
Yep.
That makes it easy for them.
More buttons.
Yeah, more
Yep.
buttons.
You know what, I agree we need to do something about this, and having input at least makes some of the community feel better that they have a voice. But it's the old adage, you can't please all the people all the time. So we may be tilting at windmills, but.
So have we agreed to go ahead and on the election letter sent out at the end of this month or the beginning of next month, whenever we do it, to add those two options, enforce the DCCRs, which means no parking, or to park on the non-mailbox side? Is that what we're saying?
I think so.
Yeah,
I'd
that
make a
sounds right.
motion.
Yeah, they send a letter that like major, which way they want to do non-mailbox or enforce totally.
But I think we need to also set a date to have that response sent back to us.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah, it certainly has to be back at least a few days, if not a week before, whenever Ameritech has to send out the ballots, right?
Right.
Well, but we have to have a meeting in between that so you can have the numbers and decide what you want to do too.
Well, not necessarily. We can just resolve today to pick the winner. Whatever option is the most, is the most whatever is the one that we put in the petition to amend.
The question I have is, once we find out which of those two options homeowners go for, when we send out for the final, to get them to amend the DCCRs, don't we have to have a policy set up with everything spelled out for what's the process, what's the fine, what's the procedure, et cetera, et cetera? Because that'll take time to kind of figure that out and get it written up, won't it?
Right.
No,
We have
the
a fine
enforcement
for
is different from a rule. If you amend the DCCRs to say, you are allowed to park on the mailbox, on the non-mailbox side, that's the rule. We don't necessarily need to have an enforcement procedure in order to amend the rule itself.
But
Because
if
there's no
you're,
enforcement
shouldn't
procedure in the
people know?
DCCRs, right?
if you're going to amend the DCCRs to a policy that you cannot enforce, we're in the same problem.
Mhm.
But either way, we have to enforce something, Debbie.
No, I
If we-
got that. So I'm back on the,
Yeah, either you enforce it all or you don't enforce anything, I think is what Debbie's trying to say.
Yeah.
Or we're back with needing a letter of rehabilitation because we're not doing everyone.
Yeah, but if we enforce no parking, we have to enforce that. We have, I mean, we're going to have to do some kind of enforcement. We're in a position where we have to do some kind of enforcement, I think.
Yeah, I think the benefit of doing what we're doing with sending out the survey and seeing if people want to go ahead and amend the DCCRs is, you know, not running headlong into rehabilitation, creating a policy, which then becomes moot, you know, a month or two later, and then causes further confusion because we're sending out information saying we're going to enforce one thing and then it changes. And now we're going to have to send out another letter saying, hey, now there's a new policy and we're going to change that too. You know, either way, we're going to have to figure out enforcement. But as far as giving the community an opportunity to say, you know, it's going to be a problem, let's at least try to take a crack at changing the DCCRs to alleviate some of that problem. You know, for all we know, if we make a clear stand, so, you know, the community speaks, they change the DCCRs, and we say we're going to be enforcing it, you know, but we give them an avenue to actually, you know, comply, even if they have a ton of cars, enforcement may not be an issue anymore. It may not be a real big problem. I go back to saying, you know, it's not binary. It's not, you know, you are enforcing them or you aren't enforcing them. It's, you know, you're creating a policy to enforce it when you see it. But if we give them an avenue to where they can actually park on the correct side, the level of enforcement that we saw before we needed rehabilitation might be sufficient to curb the problem because it's just not that big of a problem anymore. If we alleviate the acuteness of the issue, then it may be a situation where enforcement isn't as, you know, quite the quagmire that it was prior.
Well, let's hope it goes that way.
So
I sure hope so.
So right now, no matter whether people vote for parking on the non-mailbox side or they leave it as is, enforcement is the only route at this point, no matter how it goes. So if people don't vote, we go back to enforcing the DCCRs.
Right. Which in and of itself is a headache.
Yeah. Which is essentially what we should prepare for, because historically speaking, we don't get a lot of people voting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to be realistic here. There's
I
never
got it.
been, you
Yeah.
know, there's never been
What's
enough.
our magic number to change the DCCRs?
Is it
I think
2/3?
it's 10%, isn't it?
10%, I think.
I thought it was more than 10%.
I thought it was 2/3 of
Yeah, so
the
did I.
Oh, no, no, no,
2/3
no.
of the homeowners to change
It's a
the DCCR.
petition of something like 10% of the homeowners.
10%, yes.
And then it goes to the board. If the homeowners want, like, you know, to do it themselves, you need 2/3.
Right.
If the petitioners want to bring it to the board for the board to decide, then it's, I believe it, you know, at least my recollection is that it's 10%, so substantially less.
Yeah, that's correct.
Petition's 10%.
And
Yeah, it's 10%. I looked it up.
Yeah, and then it goes 2/3 of the board, I think it is.
Correct.
Yeah, and then it's up to the board to decide which way. Well, we give them two options, then
So
Enforcement
is
or
Chris gonna
light
prepare this
enforcement.
survey?
Yeah, who's going to prepare this letter to, I mean, is that Ameritech that puts out the election letter?
Yeah,
yes.
we'll draft it and send it on to you guys to take a look at. Make sure it's got everything in there that you want.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Any other discussion on this particular issue before we go on to committee reports?
I think we're good.
Actually,
Okay.
I do have something. It's
Okay.
kind of related. I know, like years ago, we were talking about possibly creating an area. I know it's CDD, creating an area for storage vehicles. You know, storing vehicles. Have we thought about that as far as like? I don't know. Maybe Judy, you'll remember because
Well, I know we did, but I think they decided that that was really a far-fetched idea because I think their only place that could be done now would be Roanoke.
Yeah.
I mean, the storage area was, first of all, to build right behind my back patio,
Yeah,
the water.
originally.
But I discussed with commissioners, and they send them that they cannot do it because
Don't have a-
neighbors around here with commissioners, and they stop for, they find their reasons to it. I'm not really know the exact details, but they say they can't.
I do remember that, yeah. That was brought up at one of the board meetings.
Well, I think if we want to spend $45,000 and buy that parking lot, that's an option. So that's necessarily a wise investment.
Rent out the spots
Yeah.
for the overflow, rent it out, pay it off in a year.
You're not talking about Spyglass, are you?
Yeah.
No
No,
way.
it's been sold.
Oh, has it? Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Somebody's been surveying it, so I hope they understand they need to at least let us know their plans for the size of have the house and have a 3-car garage, et cetera.
Yeah, we'll see. May not be a bad idea to send out a welcome letter, letting them know, welcome to the community. When you're ready to build, here's the website where you can fill out an application.
Proactive.
Welcome to
I
the
sure hate them
community.
to build a house we tell them they have to tear down because it doesn't meet the
Yeah.
specifications.
Yeah.
Listen, Richard.
I don't know, Jane, you and I can check it out every day, watch the progression of the lot.
I walk my dog by there every night.
Yep.
Okay, committee reports. Do we have anybody from the FRC here tonight?
Steve, is that Steve over
If
there?
so, are you muted?
Isn't that Steve?
Yes.
You're muted, Steve.
You're muted, Steve.
I don't
Unmute
even see
yourself.
Steve.
Where'd he go?
I don't see him.
You're invisible,
He
Steve.
was iPad, there he is.
Here you are.
Jennifer has to there he is.
FRC, everything's going good. Like Christine said, 35 no-shows and 1 person that showed up to test their fine, and neither myself or Ariana were even there because the person showed up 20 minutes early or 15 minutes early, and Christine took care of it. So, other than that, everything's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
he showed up looking for Jennifer, because he said Jennifer gave him an extension. And so we had a little conversation about that and Jennifer's role. And then he pressure washed his house, and it really took all the paint off. So I said, come here. I said, I got a recent picture of your house. I showed him the picture of the house on the really big wide screen, and he looked at it and he goes, he said, I'll have it done in 30 days. So we're going to get the house done. But yeah, then nobody else showed up. And Steve and Ariana, I appreciate them being there. Because sometimes we prepare for some real hostile people that call and send emails. I let them know that I appreciate having Steve and Dan there.
Amen.
Okay.
All right. ARB,
Miss Jane.
yes, I guess I can report on that. We have had in the last month a couple of pretty serious issues with residents who went ahead without an application, putting in a very elaborate, expensive project that if they had applied, we certainly wouldn't have approved it as they did it. And it puts us in a real bind after the fact to either work with them to try to fix things or to think about telling them to spend a lot of money undoing what they have already spent a lot of money on. So I'm really, sad about some of these issues because it makes it very difficult for both us as well as the residents And I would really encourage residents, please, before you tackle major projects, look to make sure that you're doing something that's already okay to do. And if not, and if there's any doubt, please submit an application to the ARB.
And
How did
both
you
of
find out
these
about them?
Both of these residents are not new people. They've been here for years. So they knew the process.
Can you give us an idea of what kind of projects?
Well, one was extending a driveway, sort of, with pavers that were, kind of a strange
Colorful.
color. And they extended this attachment to the side of their driveway all the way back to their side yard, close to the back of their house.
As a walkway.
As a walkway. And the other was putting in pebbles, gravel in the
Well, it
almost
was
entire
shell.
side yard,
Mhm.
taking
With-
out the grass and putting in gravel.
Shell, they
In the
said.
front yard, you said? I
The
couldn't.
side front yard.
Between the two houses. Between the
Plus
two.
it
driveways.
extended to the other house.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So this is just like ripping up sod and putting in like pavers and crushed gravel or crushed coral?
Crushed gravel,
What?
I guess. Just
Okay.
white gravel.
Well, they said
but
it was
that's-
shell,
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's,
that's not allowed.
yeah.
Well, I
But
mean,
the
it's certainly
application,
an improvement, right? That would need to be approved.
Pardon?
Yes.
No. That's being Arizona friendly, not Florida friendly yard.
Well, even Florida friendly, changes have to be approved if it's an improvement to the land, right?
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it's one thing to, try to make a Florida friendly improvement and working with the ARB. I know when I started on the ARB as a chairperson, I was more or less instructed by the then HOA president that if it's Florida friendly, then there's nothing you can do about it. You have to approve it. That's
No.
not necessarily right. Upon further looking into it, if someone says, I want to put in, a certain gravel that'll reduce the amount of irrigation that would have to do to plants, the ARB can approve or not approve that based upon whether they think gravel, is appropriate, whether it should be, a crushed coral, whether it's brown or whether it should be white. They have a lot of discretion as far as how they can, do the improvements. What they can't do is say, well, we're not going to allow any Florida friendly improvements, but they can certainly work with the homeowner to try to make something, work that is both Florida friendly and consistent with the current scheme and requirements in that community, pursuant to the DCCRs and the planning criteria. It seems to me though, if these guys are just putting in like pavers and crushed coral, it shouldn't be that hard to rip out and just put sod back, right?
Well, the one put the pavers in by the driveway, it's in cement. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. So that's like a
So-
permanent,
a permanent, yeah.
I mean, it's
And
beautiful, but
if their entire driveway were out of these pavers, it would probably go over. But anyway, we are trying to work with both owners to see what we can do. So we're kind of in the process of that, but it just makes it very difficult.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in, and there's a weird dynamic between a sharing of responsibilities with the ARB and the HOA. Obviously, anytime the ARB gets into discovers a situation where improvements have been made before there's an approval, it perfectly makes sense to refer that over to the HOA and say, hey, listen, this was done before it was approved. We believe it's appropriate to go ahead and issue. It's not a fee. I think it's a fee. It's not a fine.
Yes.
So to issue a $100 fee, to actually complete the improvements, and then from there, I think the HOA can decide whether they're going to enter onto the land and change it themselves, whether they're going to start fining because they're not acting consistent with the documents, or whether they're just going to require them to change it back or change it to something else. The tricky thing is that the ARB is still going to be involved during this process, because inevitably, unless it stays exactly the way it is, and the ARB decides the improvement is good, they just didn't apply, timely, then there's going to be some, how do we get to the point where we can get them compliant, right? Or at least get to a finished product that is acceptable to the ARB. And so it's always going to be a little tricky when it comes to those things. And it gets even harder when you don't have a homeowner who's willing to work with the ARB. So, I mean, do the best you can. I know you guys are in a tough spot. See if you can, convince the homeowner that it's in their best interest to work with you. Hopefully they can actually show up and appear, or, you guys can reach out to them. If they're filling out an application, then you at least have contact information, right? So have,
Yes.
maybe somebody reach out to them either during a meeting.
We have, and we are.
Yeah, I appreciate your guys' work. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of flexibility. So I just want to encourage you guys and let you know that, you got our support, on the HOA side. And if you need anything or there's something that we can do to help, go ahead. But other than that, we trust you guys and we want to empower you guys. So, do what you have to do. And I know it's difficult work. So thank you for doing it.
Okay, social committee? Oh, I'm sorry,
I got
Merrick?
a question to Christina. Christina, is on our website already available to attach documents like for ARB? Because I know there was application and it didn't work for too good, but it wasn't allowing any documents.
The documents are there.
You
Because
mean
that's what
under
we were
the
saying.
application? I don't know.
The planning criteria document is there, all the
No, I
documents.
think-
No, but if you're
No,
designing
for the
something
owner to attach.
Oh,
documents.
okay.
to attach to it, because that's what we're saying. Go on a website and fill the application and send with your attachments. And I couldn't find the attachment. I don't know if the previous IT tech removed that. Like things happen.
Gotcha.
I don't know if there ever was there? Was there
Well,
ever
I
the
think-
ability to
Sure.
attach?
Yes, the way that the form is set up initially was that if you hit the submit button from the website, what it does is it sends that form, and then in an email, it opens up an email. So from that point, once the email opens up, either through Outlook or whatever process that you have, you should be able to attach all your other supplemental documents to that email and submit
Right.
the application that you fill out electronically through like a fillable PDF along with those supplemental documents, and then you can send it all in one email. I believe that we still have the email as Christina Rookberg, but I also believe that her emails are being forwarded to, I think,
Well,
Jennifer,
No,
whomever,
her,
right?
her stopped, but I do know that I spoke with Mike in my office and he set it up. I think they're going to Jennifer now. But when I
Oh,
see him
great.
tomorrow, let me make sure that if we want to add the supporting documentation, that goes as well. So let me get with Mike
Because the
tomorrow.
ARB's got the hard time then
Right.
attaching the application if there is no documents. Then that would
Well,
just.
frequently we have to, when we get an application, we have to email them for supporting documents. And again, the more information an owner can give us about their projects, the better it is and the easier it is.
Yeah,
I get numerous phone calls, on questions on that. I direct them to the website and I do tell them, if you're getting a new roof, you can go out on any website, Home Depot, Lowe's, whoever's putting in your fence. I said, you can get pictures of all of that,
Right.
put it in your email. If you have a link to Lowe's website and that's the fence you're going to use or the pavers you're going to use, I tell them, put as much information, because they're only going to come back to you if it's not complete.
Right.
So, I mean, we can only tell them and hopefully, but I do see some that just come in and it's only handwritten asking for something. And if they send it to me and I look at it, I'll give it back and say, we need the supporting documentation. And then anything I get, I give to Jennifer. So Jennifer then puts it together and gets it ready for Richard.
Richard's very good about going over the applications,
Yeah.
and if he feels something is needed, he reaches out himself.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The ARB is one of those committees that it you know, it's a thankless job because best case scenario, you're approved, and you know what? Darn right, I should have been approved. But worst case scenario, you know, I can't believe these guys are telling me how to run my house. It's a thankless job, and it does take work, and it is responsibility. So we really appreciate you guys doing it,
Mhm.
especially with the amount of organization and flexibility that you have. I appreciate it.
Okay, are we ready for social committee?
Okay.
I am.
We are still only having a food truck come in on our second Saturdays. The amenity center is closed naturally after 8 o'clock. So, and there wouldn't be any place for anybody to sit anyway if they did come. We asked this last time that we had the truck if they would please wear masks because it's difficult to social distance in that particular area. And people were very compliant about it. We have reached out, a lot of people reached out to us basically and asked if we could possibly have the food trucks come earlier. So Jane put out a survey for us, and it looks like we're gonna have this next food truck come from 5 to 8. And we're gonna see how it works. Now, if we go back to the second Saturday concerts, we will probably have to change the time some, but I still don't think we're gonna have them come until 10 because we really don't get anybody then. The only other thing we're looking at possibly doing is the Riverbend Market in September, and Vanessa Martin is taking the reins on that, and she's reaching out to vendors to see if they would actually be willing to do something like that. There is the ability to social distance since we can have the whole parking lot area, but it's just if people, you know, want to do it or not. So she's gonna hopefully have that for us by August. Other than that, that's it.
Okay, we ready to open it up to public forum comments?
Sure.
Okay.
Not everyone at once.
You gotta unmute yourself.
We gotta unmute
Unmute
them.
everyone.
You want to unmute them?
That's it. Stay put in the seat.
Is that them muting themselves or are you muting them, Jen? They have?
I unmuted everybody.
Okay, they've done it
They're still
themselves.
muted.
Yeah,
should-
they have to. Once to speak, will have to unmute themselves.
Okay, we'll give them a chance.
Well, while everybody's thinking, this is Steve Face. I have a couple things I'd like to bring up.
No.
All right.
You got your time to talk.
The first thing that I'd like to bring up is, I don't know who the individual was or the individuals who took it upon themselves to clean up the trash that got dumped at the exit of River Briar and 21st Street this weekend.
Thank you.
I drove by it on Saturday morning very early and I was shocked. On my way back, I went to the house. I came back, I did a few things around the house. I went back down there to clean it up and somebody had already cleaned it up. So if it was a resident, I would like to say thank you very much. And just a, you know, shout out for keeping your community clean and taking the initiative to go out there and do it on your own without anybody asking or telling you to. The second thing I have is, I'm not sure that residents are aware that the people on the HOA board and the CDD board are also on other committees, and a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of energy goes into our planning and our thoughts and our ideas about things that are going on within the community, and we're trying as best we can to please as many people as we can. And I'd just like to, at this time, acknowledge the people on the HOA board that are not only on the HOA board, but are on other committees too, that are running so well. And I would just like to applaud you and say, you know, thanks for volunteering your time, basically, and it's appreciated.
Thanks to you, all the volunteers, more than board. That's what the volunteers takes all the pressure from the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you,
It
Steve.
is appreciated.
All right, any other comments, concerns, questions?
If anyone have questions, they can always chat. If for some reason they can't turn the microphone. Look at the chat thing. I don't know.
Plus, while we're waiting for the last people to come around, everyone please be safe and be smart. We had almost for a straight week, we had plus 10,000 new cases. New cases this week are at almost 73,000 for just this last week. And as far as like actual, deaths go, we almost have 1,000 deaths. With 866 deaths this week just in Florida. So, things are really coming around. Hospitals are being filled. 6,049 people died in Florida from this. 454,000 have contracted COVID. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So just be smart and be safe and be considerate of others. I think we've done a very good job in Riverbend, not just from a management standpoint, but also from a community standpoint. But I just want to encourage you guys to be safe because you guys matter, and this thing's nasty.
I have a quick question about COVID-19. If somebody has it in the neighborhood, would we get aware so to not go to the pool with the pool shut down? I mean, I would hope that the person that has COVID-19 wouldn't go to the pool, but I mean, would there be hey, there's someone in the neighborhood that has it, don't go to the pool or the playgrounds or anything like that?
I do know someone in the neighborhood that does have it, and I would not dare say who, but unless they're willing to tell people that, count that they have it.
You have to self-report.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they have to self-quarantine.
And this person is self-quarantined or has self-quarantined, but, it doesn't have to be reported to the pool unless they were at the pool.
Okay. So
Even then, I don't think they have to.
with COVID-19, then they would have to say, but if they have it and don't go to the pool, then it's,
Well,
No, my recollection is at the CDD meeting, and it's more of a CDD issue because the CDD kind of governs the pool. But when I brought that up and asked if we would be doing that, the response from the rest of the board was, well, I think we're overthinking it. So, as of right now, I'm unaware of any mechanism where someone goes to the pool and it turns out that they were positive and they find out that they are positive. There's no mechanism either for the CDD to know or to share with anyone.
No, but contact tracing, if the CDC is doing that, then it's possible that they would get in touch with those people that they know that were at the pool. But how do you know everyone is there?
I wouldn't rest assured that if you were at the pool and you don't hear anything, that it's because there were no cases at the pool.
Right.
Just be careful and really take care of yourself. And that's
It
the
looks
best thing
like
to do for right now.
Florida wants to be a #1 on something. Right now it's
I do have to tell you guys something. I don't know if you've seen in the past few days that the governor is looking into all the false positives for people that did not get tested. Actually went in.
Yeah.
I am
saw
one of
that.
those people, and so was my home health aide. When we went out to Waimama to get tested, we actually couldn't make it in time.
Yep, and they send you the letter.
The next day, we got a call that we're positive, and I'm like, we didn't even do the test.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends like that.
Oh my God.
They never get the test and they get letter that they been tested positive.
So
So
why
those are
mama?
false numbers out there. So exaggerated are false.
I mean, I don't know, guys, if you see those chat discussions, like from Rudy, it's my understanding that storage house is not allowed because of the bylaws. If it
Oh, right.
revise the bylaws to be more lenient on this and allowed some sort of storage houses. I don't know if you can read them too.
Again, you have to
Budgetary
change
bylaws are a
that.
lot easier to change than the DCCR. That's
Yeah.
for darn.
I have a logo.
Well,
But I thought it was in the DCCRs.
Then Anya, I have a logo because of the obligation, but can you bring up a discussion in the next door, Facebook or email about the gym, basketball courts and tennis courts? I don't know what's the discussion's gotta be about.
CDD.
That's
Probably
CDD.
the reopening.
There's not a whole lot we
Probably
can do
what they
about
want
that.
to do. I know a lot of
Okay.
people that want that discussion.
All right.
Yeah, that's for another
Um,
group and another night. Are we ready
Can
to
I just
adjourn?
bring
the
up, the storage thing, that is in the DCCRs. It's not in the bylaws, it's in the DCCRs. That no building or structure of a temporary type shall be permitted on the property.
Yeah, but that doesn't name the actual shed, and it's not temporary if you affix it to cement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put
So
that,
I mean, there's at least
pad and it's bolted,
Yeah.
then it's not.
like so if the ARB were to choose to amend the planning criteria and say, listen, if you want a shed, you can but it's going to have to be to a cement padding, bolted in. The ARB has the discretion to do that. Whereas if something is like no trampolines, there's really not, a lot the ARB can do. I wouldn't mind, personally as a board member saying, let's leave it up to the ARB to let them decide, what they want to do. Because I fundamentally disagree with the idea that the DCCRs and the HOA is telling the ARB that you don't have discretion. That's kind of their job.
Right. No,
I
that's
like
true.
the idea of giving them the ability to say, okay, in a limited fashion, it has to be just like this, but we'll allow it. As opposed to just saying you're not allowed to even, to even place, strict restrictions in order to allow it to happen. But that's
Well,
just me.
if the community ends up going with, we want no parking at all on the streets, maybe we'll have to revisit that issue with the ARB.
Yeah, maybe.
I know some communities do the same thing on a cement, put the shed there and make you paint it the same as the house and put
Right.
shingles the same as the house.
Right.
So it looks like a
Mhm.
mini version of your house.
Yeah.
Yes.
ARB
That's
can
kind of where we went with the other, when we were talking about it on the other ARB board. It would have to be material the same as the house and shingled in
Yep.
a certain size,
Right.
attached.
Attached.
And it's
I mean,
very possible to
if it's
say,
attached, then it can be a house. I mean, some areas you can't really attach to the house because that's the
No,
way.
attached to the property,
Yeah, attached to the property, not to the actual house. It's just make it look like it's looking the same. It's not some aluminum shed
Right.
to fly away in
I
50
just hope,
hour winds.
All
I just
right.
hope people don't start renting them out as a little
Ah!
studio.
Look how long it's taking us to
Airbnb.
do the parking situation. Forget about the sheds.
Yeah, but parking is more board members than ARB. ARB can just make it. If you
Don't
go,
give them any ideas, Mara, please.
One thing at a time.
my garage will be empty then.
And everybody can park their vehicles in their garage and driveways.
That's right.
All right, ARB, it looks like you guys have a priority.
Yeah, you know they make two level sheds too, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
with the second
don't even
level.
start.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
Running water.
Air conditioning.
There you
Get some
go.
plumbing in there. Little business on the
Okay.
bottom, party on
Oh, there
top.
is one other suggestion, the storage place right on 41. It's called AAA Storage. They're
Yep.
$24.95 a month.
How much?
$24.95 a month.
Yeah, but that's for
I have a
five,
storage unit.
that's a 5x5.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's perfect, and you can go all the way up.
I got two of them, 15x20.
You have a hoarding problem.
Well, there's only you, Noel. There's 5 of them.
I will have to
Sometimes
extend
he
my
has to
garage
sleep
to the
in one,
front
Noel.
of the
Sometimes he's got to
street.
sleep in one.
Okay, do I have
There we
a
go.
motion to adjourn at
I'll make that motion.
7:59?
I second.
All right, all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night.
Take care, guys. Good
Good
work.
night. Take care.
Bye-bye.